All right, so sleep paralysis is something that I've been having a little bit of recently, and it's something that I wanted to do a little bit of research on because I kind of wanted to know more about why it was happening and just kind of get more answers as to what the hell is going on. So I did a little bit of research and I figured, why not make a video about it? I know that there's been so many people who've made videos about this in the past years. Hell, I even remember watching some about sleep paralysis demons and the Hat Man back when I was in high school, and I figured I might as well do a little bit more research and see what's been going on with sleep paralysis and accounts that have been happening more recently as of like 2019, 2020, and so on. The first thing that I wanted to do is just kind of explain what sleep paralysis is. If you've never had sleep paralysis, it's basically the feeling of being conscious but being unable to move. The main thing that I wanted to talk about sleep paralysis is not sleep paralysis itself, but the things that you see and experience while you have sleep paralysis. So whenever you have an experience like that, you don't really know what to do because you can't scream, you can't move, you cannot do anything. You're just an observer. Imagine like being in Minecraft adventure mode and you're able to look around, but you can't touch anything or interact with anything. It's kind of like that. And because you're still in a state of semi-consciousness, your body is still kind of dreaming. While you're dreaming, you obviously have a lot of different things going on in your mind. But when you're semi-awake like that, while you're in sleep paralysis, your mind starts to go kind of crazy. And in my own experience, whenever my mind started going crazy when I had sleep paralysis, I started seeing things that weren't there, or at least now I know they weren't there. At the time, I did not know this. So the most vivid memory that I had when I had sleep paralysis was when I was in high school, and at the time I was watching YouTube on my 3DS. And I guess at some point while I was watching YouTube, I dozed off and just kind of drifted into sleep. And then at some point I woke up. So I opened my eyes and I couldn't move. So while that happened, I guess my DS either died or ran out of battery because the lights of it were not on anymore, but it was still there and open. But in that night, for whatever reason, I decided to leave my door open. And when I looked over at my door, I saw what looked like a shadowy figure. You weren't really able to tell what exactly it was. It just looked like a human. A very tall human. So his body was from pretty much, my height is like 6'2", and my head still doesn't reach the very top of my door frame. But the figure that I saw was standing up to the point where a part of his head was being obscured by the door frame. What happened next was I was looking at it, trying to figure out what it was, but at the same time terrified because everyone's asleep. No one should be awake, so who is this person? So after staring at it for a little bit, it seems to start moving. So what it does is that it crashes its head and then it moves forward past my doorframe so I can see fully how tall this creature or thing or shadow is. And he starts walking closer to me. And as he starts walking closer and closer, I start feeling like, I guess, a sense of dread. It feels like I'm gonna die. I'm not able to move. I'm not able to defend myself, and I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I tried to move my hands. I can't move them. I try to scream, but all that comes out is just. So I'm not able to make that much noise. And as it gets closer and closer, this feeling of just terror and fear just completely take over my body, and it's looming over my bed. So I'm laying down right here, and this figure is standing pretty much right here where I'm sitting, and I don't know what it was, but I felt like a weird sharp pain on I don't even know what this is called, but it's the part of the leg that's above your heel, that's like your muscle. And I woke up, and when I woke up, it was because it was cramping. I guess while I was having that episode, it just kind of cramped up, and that's what shot me awake. That was definitely something that I'm not gonna forget, because it was an experience that was so terrifying that I can't even describe how scared I was. So why am I talking about this? So I'm very interested as to why these things happen. So as I did a little bit of research, I was able to find out that sleep paralysis is something that's more common than I thought. A lot of people who have sleep paralysis experiences, they hear noises, kind of like loud buzzing sounds, sensations of being dragged out of bed or flying, and difficulty breathing. So I don't know how you can feel like you're getting dragged out of bed or flying while you're paralyzed. This is the first time that I've heard of that. But the difficulty breathing. So as for the difficulty breathing, I was also having that problem in my experience. It was just, but I feel like mostly it was because of the terror. Because if you've ever been in a state of just extreme fear, you just kind of have a little bit of a hard time breathing, and you don't really know how to, you don't know how to control your breathing because you're scared. I also found out that, as we know in America, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other countries as well, but mostly in America, there have been a lot of stories of alien abductions. So there's a lot of people who believe that they've been abducted by aliens while they were sleeping. While doing research for this, I found out that there's a lot of researchers who believe that these alien abduction stories are terrors of sleep paralysis. So it could just be people who have had sleep paralysis and just think that an alien comes into the room and just kind of does unspeakable acts to them, and then they wake up and they're back in their room. So maybe that could be an explanation, but that's another topic that I'm going to cover on in other videos at some point soon. So as I was looking for information about these demons or shadowy figures, I found out that these reports go back to as far as 1664. So there is a Dutch physician whose name I cannot pronounce for the life of me, where he wrote down in his reports that this could be an incubus or a simple nightmare. So for those who don't know what an incubus or a succubus is, an incubus is kind of like a sexual male demon who tries to feed off of women in a sexual way by doing and then as for a succubus, it's pretty much the female equivalent of a sexual demon trying to get their energy from males by doing, you know. So since sleep paralysis isn't something that just happens to Americans, this is something that happens to people throughout the world. This is something that has been described as very many different things in different cultures. So for example, in the Middle East, the cases of sleep paralysis are often thought to be caused by a jinn. So for those of us who don't know what a jinn is, it's basically like an evil genie. It's a supernatural creature that terrorizes and sometimes kills its victims. And if it actually kills its victims, we might have a bigger problem than we're really letting on here. And something might need to be done about that. In Italy, some people interpret sleep paralysis as an assault by the Fetch. It's a figure described as a malevolent witch or a terrifying giant cat, which is, I don't know if I find that fascinating or terrifying. Because imagine you're having sleep paralysis, and then when you wake up, you have like a giant cat just on your chest, but it is like the most terrifying cat you can think of, which, I mean, I don't know, it might be all cats, depending on how you look at it. So now that we know a little bit more of a background as to why sleep paralysis, or at least what the superstitions of sleep paralysis demons are, we can kind of understand why people think that it's demons, because it's just something that at the time was not explained, or at least at the time there was no explanation. I believe that now we can chalk up sleep paralysis to simple states of just being stressed out and just having trouble sleeping, but where back then in 1664 we didn't know that maybe stress could be causing it. It was just demons, and who knows, maybe those demons are real. So now, with all of this in mind and all of these stories on all these different demons and figures, it's still very interesting that most sleep paralysis stories to this day are very similar. And could it be a coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Pretty much what I described earlier in the beginning of the video with my experience with the Hat Man is something that a lot of other people have experienced. Not everybody who has sleep paralysis experiences the same things, which is something that I'm going to get to in a little bit. But the ones that do have similar experiences can sometimes be a little too similar. So pretty much the general description that a lot of people give is that it is a tall silhouette of a man with a brimmed hat and no distinguishable features whatsoever. No eyes, no nose or mouth. It is only a silhouette that tends to appear when in a state of sleep paralysis. So from what I see here, many stories simply have him standing at the corner or a doorway of your room, while other stories are a little more sinister in nature. So for the stories that are a little bit more sinister in nature, kind of involve physical, or at least a form of physical pain when you see the Hat Man or whatever figure it is, whether it's a succubus or the Hat Man, a djinn, or even just a demon. Most of these stories involve you getting grabbed, or feeling like you're getting grabbed, or feeling like something is pressing down on your chest, or even sharp scratching pains on your abdomen or anywhere within your body. So all of these stories have been told for years, and it's very terrifying because even though a lot of us have had experiences where we don't end up getting hurt, we just wake up with a little bit of a fright and we're just sweating and that's pretty much it. There are some people who go through sleep paralysis, wake up, and they have real scratches on their body, which is something that I still cannot find an explanation for. Thankfully, I've never had to deal with that. Mine was just mostly a psychological terror that I'm never gonna get rid of, but at least it was never something physical, because if it was something physical, I would probably have to contact a priest. So at a point in this video, I did do a small interview with some of my friends where I asked them what their sleep paralysis experiences were like. So that's something that I'm gonna go ahead and put in the video right now. Okay, so I'm gonna start with you, Raul. So you said you've had sleep paralysis before. What was like the most memorable experience that you had, or like the one that had the biggest impact on you?
I would probably say it's probably the very first one that I had. This happened when I was still sharing a room with my little brother, and so the way how the room is set out is I have a bed on one side. He had it was two separate beds. I have one. He had another one on the other side. My bed was facing towards the door, and eventually, the way how it went down was I just woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. Like I have no idea why, and of course, like just started looking around, moving my eyes about. Everything was still turned off. See the little bro still sleeping. But then I realized, I couldn't move, and I was like, oh, that's weird, and like it's my first time happening, not moving. And then all of a sudden it comes this weird like a figure from my doorway. It was kind of like a white light of figure. Like there wasn't any like specifics of the thing. It was just
no distinctions.
No distinctions or nothing. There was like it didn't have a body. It was just a figure. It was just a white lighted figure.
Okay, so it was completely white, like no dark shadows or anything. It was just white, like a ghost.
Yep.
Okay.
You could tell it was it was a figure though. And then I just saw her there, and I was like, what is that? And I tried to move. Of course, I couldn't move. I couldn't make a noise either. Like I was like just making I did like make noises, but I couldn't open my mouth. So it was just a bunch of like grunts and like all that. And then the figure went towards my bed. Like I don't know if it walked or if it just kind of glided towards the side of my bed, and it was just at my bedside right next to me. And I'm just watching this, and I'm just terrified of what this thing is. And then I saw what looked like its arm going up. I didn't see it holding or anything. I don't know what it was doing, and I just saw it like swung it down towards me. And of course, whenever like anything is like being thrown at you, you flinch and you close my eyes, and then I was able to open them again for quick, and it was gone, and I was able to move.
Like it shook you awake?
Yeah, it was like I blinked, and I just like just kind of just like got spooked. So that was the most experience one. The other two times were weird because the other two times I knew something was up. I woke up, same situation. I couldn't move or nothing, but I knew that I was in a sleep paralysis. And essentially it was just mind games, because whenever your body is not used to something, and you're experiencing something that's not natural to you, the brain likes to fight with you and makes it go to panic mode real quick. But those two other times, I was able to calm myself and be able to get out of it. And nothing didn't happen on those two times because both of those two times I was facing the wall when I opened my eyes.
And how old were you with the first time that it happened?
I would say I was probably like a teenager. Probably happened either middle school or early high school. I think I was
Okay.
probably like either 14 or 15.
So it was like around the same time that I met you?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
All right. Pretty interesting. Dusty, what's yours?
All right. So I remember this one quite vividly, actually. This was the first time I experienced it. I think I was 12 at the time. This was the first time I had left my home and was doing like a stay over fucking. I was staying with someone else, different family, extended family, and this was my first time sleeping in a room that wasn't my own. So I felt pretty uncomfortable. And around the night when it was time to go to sleep, I slept with my parents. I slept on the floor, and this was like, I'd say, well into the night. I was falling asleep. Then after a while, I woke up, went to go get a drink, came back, tried falling back asleep. And then after, I'd say like an hour or so, I'm not sure if I was asleep or if I was awake. I'm pretty sure I was like kind of in between or something. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But I couldn't move. I couldn't move. I was just there. And I was just stuck there looking around. I was panicking. I was looking over to my parents' bed. I could barely even see them. It was so fucking dark at the time. And I wouldn't per se call it a demon. It was very fucking weird. It wasn't a demon, but more so like
a figure?
No, I know what it was. Like,
oh, you know what it was?
I know what it was. And it looked like a samurai. I'm not gonna lie. It looked like a straight up samurai.
Okay.
But without the armor, I guess like a Ronin or something. It's just shadowy Ronin.
Uh-huh.
And I remember because this is my first time I experienced it, and it was just standing there after a while. And the only reason I woke up was because halfway through it started approaching me. It took out its sword, everything, and it's like one of those ones where they just straight up attack you.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was balls to the walls, just panicking. I tried to say something. I tried to move my hands. Everything felt like I was underwater. I couldn't do shit.
Mm-hmm.
So after it pulled up and legitimately attacked me, like straight up sword through the chest, like that shit just snapped. Woke up and I was in a daze. No one was in the room. It was like the morning. Like it was so trippy. I had no clue what was going on, and I was like 12, and I had a pretty overactive imagination at the time. So I'm assuming I can attribute it to that. But after that happened, I had like a few more, but they weren't as intense as that one. I don't think any of them ever came close to being as intense as that one. Like I have like maybe frequent ones here every now and then where it's not really a demon or whatever, but there have been times where I feel like I am awake. I don't know if I'm awake, but it feels like I'm awake. I can't tell if I'm in a dream or something, but usually it always ends up with me opening my eyes. So I don't know when I close them or when I ever shut them, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, based off of just both of your stories alone, I already see like one similarity, but they're like very different from what I've been researching. Because everyone says like the Hat Man and like shadowy figures, and then meanwhile we got a Ronin and a ghost that wants to throw hands. It's still interesting.
Yeah, I remember that shit clear as day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do I.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that in general, for anyone's first ever sleep paralysis experience, is something that you're not going to forget, because it's like a moment of legitimate terror and helplessness where you can't do anything, no matter what you try to do, like as hard as you try to move, you're not able to move, and you just feel helpless. And then when you wake up, all of it is just gone, and you don't know what happened. But that's also beneficial because later on in the future, when you have that happen again, you're able to kind of control it a little bit better because you've experienced it before and you know that it's not real. All right, Bun, what's your sleep paralysis experience?
When I was like, I think like 5 or 6, I was sleeping in the car waiting for my mom and my grandma to like get out of some place. I don't even remember. But I know that I was sleeping in the back seat and I was laying flat on my back with my hands over my chest. And then at some point, I woke up and there were these little like black demon things like jumping on top of me, or like that's what I saw. And I knew that I couldn't move, and it felt like super heavy, and like I could feel the weight of what was on me. And I know that I couldn't talk, and I tried calling for help, and I think I tried just like closing my eyes, and then when I opened them again, it was over and I could move. But then, you know, I got Latin family, so my grandma came back to the car and she was like, "What happened?" And I told her, and then she had to do one of those quick little prayers over me. And I was like, "Damn, thank you, Grandma."
Okay. And have you had any other experiences after that?
I had sleep paralysis a lot when I was about like 14 to 15. I remember seeing the Hat Man. And I had a conversation about the Hat Man with my friend who also struggles with like sleep paralysis sometimes. And I think it was when I was in my old room, I used to have to sleep with my door open just like slightly. And so there was always kind of this weird space behind my door in my room. And one night where I woke up and I couldn't move, and I saw this shadowy hand come out from behind my door and then crawl up my wall and then up my ceiling over to where I was laying down. And I just remember watching it and not being able to do anything about it. And I think I shook myself out of it by screaming, but I definitely like freaked the fuck out of my parents. 'Cause they came down the hall and they were like, "Are you good? Like, what's going on?" I was like, "I saw something crawling up the wall." They were like, "Oh, you probably had a nightmare." But I knew that I was semi-awake because I knew I watched it happen, and I knew that I wasn't like asleep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, shit, that's fucking terrifying. All right. Those were all really good stories. I'm going to put them in the video and then give you guys no credit. How does that sound?
I'll take it, sure.
After hearing their stories and reading some of the other stories I found on the internet, it's very interesting just to see how many people have had a similar experience. So my general question is the Hat Man a demon, or is he a messenger? So now, I'm not very religious. I'm not one to put any beliefs or anything into anyone's mind and state it as a fact or anything like that. I simply have my own opinions and my own conclusions. But wouldn't it be fun to think that this Hat Man that has been terrorizing people for years and years is actually some sort of messenger? What if he's a being from another dimension who comes to our reality to try to give us a message about something that's going to happen in the future, maybe good or bad? And in most of these, it's probably a bad thing considering how he's terrorizing everybody. Or maybe it's a demon that feeds off of negativity. Because if you think about it, most of these sleep paralysis cases happen with some sort of factor in play. Whether it's anxiety, stress, or just anything going on in your life that affects how you sleep. It could be lack of sleep as well, insomnia is another factor. But seeing as to how he would show up whenever we're under a lot of stress or anything like that kind of helps the case of thinking that he's a demon that feeds off of negativity, and you're having some sort of like whatever hardship in your life and then you can't sleep and then you have that happen to you. He's probably feeding off of your negativity, and maybe all of us are screwed. Who knows? Maybe the Hat Man is like another form of a djinn and we're all gonna die. But all jokes aside, I do have my own theory about all of this. I personally do believe that these experiences are something that would be happening in a dream. So because you woke up somewhere in your sleep cycle, your brain is still active in creating these imaginary situations, I guess, and you're still kind of in a dreamlike state. So even though you might be semi-conscious, you're still kind of not. And the things that you see are really just not there. So it's just you having an overactive imagination, as the guy on the second story. So maybe there isn't really anything to actually worry about. Yeah, it sounds kind of boring that it's just your brain kind of doing things to mess with you. But it's also reassuring, because if you've had sleep paralysis once, when you have it again, you know what to expect and you know that nothing is there. and you're more than likely going to be able to overcome it the second time around, which is something that has happened to me. But that's pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to cover. This is a topic that I found very interesting. I had a lot of fun researching it, and this is something that I definitely want to do more of as I get more comfortable talking to a camera, which is something that I don't normally do. So I am going to go ahead and start working on a second video already. I think I'm going to be working on aliens. So that's going to be fun. So stay tuned for that. And for everyone who stuck around to the end, I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate that you stuck around to hear my ramblings. And if you like what you saw, feel free to stick around. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you'll have a great day. And remember to stay hydrated. Good night.